Hey everyone, this is Stove here. I know I am kind of a little late on when I'm doing this, and I am doing this preview of week 4 of college football. There's already Iowa and Rutgers playing right now. Uh, Oklahoma State is even playing. Rice and Charlotte had already played, so Rice was able to pull out that win. It is 11:29 at night, Friday night, so hopefully I can get this video up a few hours before the matchups happen. So let's get right into this. No more dilly daddling. First game we're gonna talk about. I'm gonna talk about the 7 games. If you guys aren't new here. If you guys are new here, I have slowly turned into basically just, obviously there's so many good games that you should watch, and obviously you guys can comment and let me know what games did I forget to talk about, or what games I should have talked about instead of the other ones that I'm going to talk about today. I usually do 7 every single video, and occasionally I'll talk about a couple other games. It really just depends on how I feel about those games. So what I'm gonna be doing today. First game is going to basically be the first game on the matchup here, which is Texas Tech, Utah. Obviously, I don't necessarily want to always do ranked versus ranked or ranked versus unranked games, but this is I feel like this is going to be one of the most watched matchups today, or at least around this time of 12, 1:30-ish during the day. Realistically, I think this is going to be the matchup of the weekend. To me, there's really no other game besides the other 2 that I'm going to talk about right after this, which arguably can be debated on the first 3 games that I'll talk about will be in my opinion, the biggest games to play. You guys may not think so, but that's why you guys should comment, let me know. Anyway, Texas Tech and Utah. Both teams have solid defenses. With Texas Tech, obviously you could literally just say that, but obviously with Texas Tech you can just say, well, because they paid like nearly $30 million on their team, they should have a good team, or they should have a top 25 team. That is not always the case, but Utah is kind of similar, with I think them paying maybe $10 million less, or around the same amount. I know it was between, Utah is also paid between like 15 and 25 million as well. So don't let just Utah being Utah confuse you, if they because there's a lot of colleges, especially if you're in the top 25 every year or every other year. These teams are getting money somewhere, and more than likely it is football or basketball, because obviously Utah the last few years have also been a solid basketball program too. Texas Tech, from what I've read on the stats here, just on paper, I think it is going to be a very close game regardless. Utah and Texas Tech, if you look at total yards, points allowed, passing yards, yards allowed, rushing yards, and sacks, for the good majority of them, most of those stats, Texas Tech and Utah both are top 5 in, which is crazy to think about, but that's pretty much what that is. If you go onto this and you look up the leaderboards or the rankings of the 6 stats that you'll see, they're both right there. Sometime I think for like half of them they're like neck and neck. But to me, just to kind of clarify this, maybe not put it in too much detail, but Texas Tech, I think, only has the edge just because they have a better points per game. I mean, not points per game, passing yards per game. On average, both of them are 3-0. On average, Texas Tech has 383.7 yards, with Utah only having 227 passing yards per game. Like I said, other than that, they're pretty similar. Utah is a better rushing team, and I think they've even had, if you look at the attempts in passing and carries, I think Utah even has a higher percentage of rushing than they do passing. But then you also have Texas Tech, because of these passing yards that they get on average a game, they also have 602.7 total yards per game, where Utah only has 517 per game, which both squads, that's pretty darn impressive. That's all I gotta say on that. It's pretty good. I think it just comes down to the defensive plays that we will more than likely see with both teams. Utah has a solid front seven. I think Texas Tech has the same thing. I think you probably know more Utah players than Texas Tech, because right now Texas Tech has only really showed they've had some good playmaking defensive plays, like with a few interceptions the last few games. But at the same time, to me, I think Texas Tech wins. Obviously, you guys are thinking, well, Stove, why are you thinking Texas Tech is going to win? Texas Tech is going to Utah, and not only that, but even if they weren't going to Utah, Utah has looked better against better opponents. That may be true, but I still think unless Utah gets more, I would say, if they get more than 28 minutes in possession time, so that's 28 minutes with the ball in hand on the field, then you guys can tell me, okay, well, there's Utah. Okay, well, Utah then wins that game if they get more than 28 or more than 30 minutes of possession time. Obviously, it's more likely that happens, but still, Texas Tech will end up winning via passing plays, but I wouldn't be surprised if Texas Tech and Utah both score 35 plus and it ends up going into a field goal or even overtime. So, but I would have to say Texas Tech upsets Utah at Utah, and we see probably one of the best matchups this weekend with those two. Next game up is actually going to not be Auburn and Oklahoma, for some of you guys that think that that's going to be a great game, which it will be. Don't think I'm saying like, oh, that just blown out of the water. No, Auburn and Oklahoma is going to be a rough and tough SEC conference game that's going to give us the actual like, obviously it's only week 4, but it'll give us the thought process of, okay, this is how good Oklahoma is, or this is how good Auburn is. It really just depends on who comes out with this, but if it's a close game, then both of these teams are going to be something real bad, real hard to try and mess with. I do think Auburn and Oklahoma deserve to be top 15, top 16 teams, but only one of these teams are coming out undefeated still. Yes. Anyway, but I'm going to go ahead and say Michigan and Nebraska, my second matchup that I'm going to talk about today. These two teams are both undefeated. Matt Rule has done a very good job in Nebraska. I think this is his third year with Nebraska. Ever since he's gotten into college, gotten back into college, he has done fantastic with Nebraska. I think he's turning Nebraska back into a team that used to be a hard-nosed top 25 team that we all missed. And the Cornhuskers are going to be there to see Nebraska, in my opinion, win. Not by a whole lot, but by a handful of points. By a handful of points, I mean like between 3, 5, 7. Maybe even 10 points. Obviously, it shows that Michigan, you could kind of see it on the bottom of my camera, but Michigan, even going to Nebraska, is favorited 1.5 by 1.5. So I think, yes, you're going to have Nebraska. I mean, you're going to have Michigan because of how Michigan is, because of who Michigan are, how Michigan is, and who Michigan is as a football prestigious school. They're coming in, their defense is going to be that, like, they're going to need that defense to save them in tons of different situations. Nebraska is going to score more than 4 times. It's going to happen. And I'm talking about touchdowns, okay? Because that's how much I believe in Nebraska trying to show that they are the team. They are, in my opinion, they are the part of the top 5, top 4, Big Ten teams that will be more than likely going into the college playoffs this year. Michigan is a solid team, no doubt, but they still have a freshman for a quarterback. Unless he shows he is willing to deal with this pressure correctly, and the offensive line doesn't give up any sacks or doesn't give up any pressured plays against Bryce Underwood, then maybe Michigan has it by like 10 plus points. But Nebraska will be pressuring the freshmen. There's no doubt about it, and Nebraska will be able to do it because that's just how they've been winning games. They've kept on pressuring and pressuring and pressuring. Even the last 2 games when they didn't even need to. They didn't need to put so many points on the last 2. Like, granted, they didn't really face competition like Michigan has the last 3 games. But still, Nebraska had a solid game, I think, the first week. And then after that, they just faced some very small D1 or D2 football teams. But still, regardless, Nebraska is going to show their fury against Michigan. Michigan can be ready for it, or they're going to go in there and get their teeth knocked out. As simple as that. It will probably end up being also a close game, but I think by like the fourth quarter, you're going to see one of these two teams pull away. By end of third to beginning of fourth quarter, you're going to see one of these teams pull away with the win, and one of these teams is going to be upset that they lost the game, obviously. So I think, like I said before, Nebraska gets that win at home by 5 points, between 3 to 5 points. I mean, yeah, you do have, like, Bryce Underwood has done quite a bit, being able to be that slightly mobile quarterback when he needs to get out of the pocket. But this is how Oklahoma beat Bryce Underwood and Michigan. They were just more tough. They were pressuring Bryce Underwood. He could not get plays off. He was rushed out of the pocket I don't know how many times during that Oklahoma and Michigan game. Yes, Michigan played very good these last 3 weeks, but still, Oklahoma shows that you pressure Bryce Underwood even going out of the pocket. As long as Nebraska is playing solid lockdown defense for majority of the plays, it doesn't matter. Even if Michigan scores off run plays, Nebraska just needs to play like how they have been playing offensively, because their quarterback has gone 72 for 94 72 completions for 94 passing attempts and 8 passing touchdowns. And obviously both have running backs that have multiple touchdowns already and over 300 rushing yards. So pretty impressive. Obviously, I think Bryce Underwood's offensive line need to make sure that he does not get touched. As long as he doesn't get touched as long as he doesn't get hit more than 6 to 8 times, which I know is hard because Nebraska, like I said, is going to come in there swinging. As long as they don't allow Nebraska to touch Bryce Underwood more than 8 times, that goes for pressure, that goes for even if he throws the ball, is he still getting hit? It will happen, but I'm saying as long as it doesn't affect the play and it doesn't affect Bryce Underwood, you don't let that happen, and it doesn't go over 8 or 10 or more, Bryce Underwood pulls it out and is able to win that game by 10 or more points. Nebraska will pressure that offensive line. I don't know about any injury reports on any linemen, so I'm really only looking at the stats, which I could probably just be better than that and just look at some of the injury reports. But for what I'm seeing, Nebraska will just need to pressure Bryce Underwood. The moment you do that, the moment you contain Hayes, their running back, is the moment that Bryce Underwood will literally just be in the pocket trying to find people, and even the moment he tries to get out, bam, already the pocket has already collapsed and he has now gotten sacked, which I think Michigan has already given up a few sacks already this year. Nebraska, I think, has as well, but not as much, or at least not as many pressures. So we'll see what happens. If Michigan ends up pulling it out, it's really only just because The defense had made plays. Michigan's offense was gonna able to rush and be able to play off of the energy for that defense, just like how Michigan has really done for the last 5-6 years, in my opinion. So let's get on to the next matchup, which actually the third team that I'm thinking about is, I'm not going to talk about them because I just put them over to the fifth team just because of how these games are matched up. Didn't want to keep on going up and down. But yeah, Nebraska wins. Going on to that, I do we're gonna go ahead and go to the third game, which is actually right here, North Carolina UCF. Yes, I know you guys are thinking, Stove, what in the hell are you trying to talk about North Carolina and UCF? Why? What is the reason? What's your deal with North Carolina? Well, I think realistically, North Carolina wins against UCF. You can throw a lot of shade at me. I think North Carolina still gives up more than 3 touchdowns. Realistically, I don't think they give up more than 27 points though, and I think as long as Gio Lopez and June, their running back, D June, and Ship, their number 1 wide receiver, at least it looks like it from the stats point of it. You get those stars on North Carolina and they're able to get going early like they did that very first game. They were able to get going early, got a touchdown, but they stay consistent. I think the one thing that Bill Belichick needs to really continue to keep on working on them during practices is the consistency of driving down that ball. And also they need to work on a lot of things defensively. But other than that, whenever just speaking on offense, it is the consistency that they need to work on. It is nothing, in my opinion, it has nothing to do with anything else that goes on. It is the consistency of them driving the ball down. The moment they start to get to feel themselves, and the moment that they're able to move the ball however way they want to offensively, you're more than I think you're gonna see at least 35 plus points just from North Carolina. It could be a smaller points game if UCF defense causes pressure against Lopez, but Lopez has gotten, I think, 25 plus rushing carries already. I mean, the guy can move out of the pocket whenever he feels like it's necessary. So I think that's another thing that Bill Belichick allows his quarterback to do that, and he knows that he's going to keep that ball safe. I think he wouldn't allow his quarterback to do that if he knew his quarterback, unless if he knew that quarterback was going to make plays and he was going to continue driving that, and he was going to also keep that ball safe. So realistically, I think it ends up being North Carolina winning 35-27. North Carolina could probably get more than 35 points during the game, but it could end up being the opposite if North Carolina is not consistent on offense. I do see some improvement on that North Carolina defense, but still there needs to be consistency on that offense, and then afterwards, and then while that is going on, Bill Belichick can then start to work little by little on that defense. So hopefully by the end of the year, they are going into a bowl game, and hopefully by the time that bowl game happens, they look like absolute studs, the whole team. So, I would definitely say North Carolina wins. And we go on to the fourth game. And yes, I'm talking very quickly. I'm trying to move as quick. If you guys feel like I should be a little bit more detailed with my stuff, and I should go back to trying to be more detailed, I will. But that's only if you guys are asking for it. So now we go to NC State and Duke. And this will not be the only time we talk about the Carolina University football teams. We have not only North Carolina State, but obviously we just talked about North Carolina University. And then we're even going to talk about, I believe, East Carolina. So, East Carolina University, which I think is kind of an underrated football program in its own right. So anyway, got NC State and Duke. I feel like even though NC State has a more prestigious, in my opinion, it could be arguable, but football-wise, NC State is just a better football school. However, we need to watch out for Duke's offense. It could end up being like back and forth, offense versus offense. Only reason why I say that is because Darian, his first name, I think. Manza. Darian Manza. If I'm saying that name right, please let me know. Because God forbid I can't say anything right. But this man has over 1,000 passing yards and 8 touchdowns. So I think that's the Duke offense can be a sneaky club going into it. On paper, you would think that Duke could, if any other part of their team was very good, you would think that they could end up being a top 25 team this year. But defensively, they've just been giving up points. Yes, they've won games, but against who? Realistically, against who? It's not exactly the thing that... Now, granted, they are a part of the same conference as NC State, but I think Duke has really only has that quarterback, which again, I wouldn't be surprised if that quarterback ends up with putting up as the stats that he's putting up right now. He continues to do that just in the last 3-4 games that he's played. I wouldn't be surprised if they this Duke quarterback's looking pretty good. Let's draft him. He's a top 64 player in the draft. Realistically, if he continues to keep playing, of course, and playing at a high level. But like I said, the defense seems to be that true problem, in my opinion. I think it will be back and forth. The defense will allow plenty of points, but who I like to see and this is just going off of stats, but I've seen a few highlights of this guy too. Vincent Anthony Jr. with already 5 sacks in 3 games and 12 total tackles. So maybe we see another set of sacks. Maybe we see another handful of tackles this weekend. I could totally see it. So, but North Carolina State has even kept their quarterback safe. Their quarterback has thrown 71% completion, 719 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, only gotten sacked twice. So that's pretty good, especially with the 3 teams that they faced. They've been taking care of their quarterback, unlike Duke. Their offensive line is also, I know I keep on going back to Duke, but their offense, like, it's almost like a Burrow situation in Duke right now. Like, no one's really looking at it like that, except for me, but that's only because I'm like, this is kind of similar, just a little bit. But anyway, North Carolina State, they have receivers. They have Grimes. They got Rogers. If none of you guys know who these players are, they are athletes. They are underrated athletes that North Carolina has. Weasley Grimes, Noah Rogers, Terrell Anderson, Teddy Huffman, and Mr. Jackson. Like, all of these guys have had 6 or more catches, and at the same time, they're also averaging every catch, they're averaging 10 plus yards a play. So I think you're gonna probably see North Carolina, if it ends up happening this way, I see North Carolina State beating Duke by, it would probably be 48. Yeah, 48 to like 30 or something, you know, something that like makes sense for how the quarterback of Duke may try to keep them in the game, but because of their defense, North Carolina has already done so much on the offensive and as the offense, and even having some solid rushing as well. Their running back, his first name Hollywood. I'm almost for certain that's a nickname. But he seems to be pretty good. 21 carries on average per game, so 63 this entire season, 380 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns already. So I think North Carolina ends up putting up like between 45, 52 points. Duke still puts up a decent amount of points, but that'll probably be more in like the second half, really, just so that quarterback seems like he is rallying the troops a little bit. We go on to then talking about was going to talk about it as the 3rd game, but switched it to the 5th game. We are going to be talking about, come on, there you are, Illinois versus Indiana. This team, both of these teams are so very good, and yes, these 2 teams are also in the Big Ten. Yes, these 2 teams are undefeated, so I think an early season undefeated matchup, someone's gotta go type situation at 7:30. This can definitely rival the 2 matchups that we'll see: Michigan versus Nebraska and Texas Tech versus Utah. Illinois and Indiana have both very similar stats whenever it comes to their QBs. Both of them are throwing solid completions. And Indiana looks like they got multiple running backs going from here to there. I think they have 3 running backs with 15 plus carries and like over 100 yards, 100 rushing yards, I think. Uh, Illinois has a solid running back who's gotten 50 carries, 3 touchdowns, and 222 rushing yards. That's pretty impressive. You have H. H. Betty. Yeah. H. Betty. If you guys like, H is not his actual first name, but I just have it H. Betty. But H. Betty on Illinois and O. Copper Jr., who is in Indiana. Both of them look like number 1 options for both teams. I know that was very slow of me, but both of them, number 1 options. You'll see a lot of both of them. I wouldn't be surprised if both of them end up with touchdowns during this game, which could either end up being a very small points type game where it really goes to the kickers. So you'll probably end up seeing like Illinois winning like 18, Indiana winning like 18-9, or Illinois winning 15-13, or something like that. Or it could end up being like what I'm predicting a lot of these college games will probably end up being, and that's somewhat high scoring games. Now granted, it doesn't look very good defensively that all these defenses are going to try to show up and then just allow so many points. But again, with Indiana, their power play was their running game. Obviously, their passing game had a lot to do with what they were doing last year, but their running game gave them the chances up the ass. It was so crazy for Indiana. Illinois, I don't know how they're ranked 9th, but they look dangerous, and both of these two teams are going to look good during this game. There's going to be some tweaks, I'm sure, some little mistakes that we're going to see with both of these teams. It's just going to happen, which by the end of the game, the coaches are, and it's going to be like, okay, well, we just need to fix that now. So in that case, I just think, in my opinion, I really can't say who is going to win. So I will just have to say I am going to go with the home field advantage, and I'm going to say Indiana is going to win against ranked 9 Illinois. So let's get into the 7th game, which is Arizona and Baylor. Well, Arizona State and Baylor. Both teams look pretty good offensively. Obviously, Sam Levitt didn't exactly perform like I thought he would the last 2 games. He's given his offensive line is allowed 7 sacks. Not exactly something that you would like to see for that Arizona State offensive line, but it is what it is. Sam Levitt is more of a scrambler anyway, so it could have been more his fault of why he got sacked, maybe holding the ball a little bit more than he should have. From what it looks like, Arizona State does hold the ball and run the ball 57% of the time, whilst then passing 43% of the time. Obviously, it could probably switch up a little bit, but they're more of a running team, which makes sense because they've gotten a lot of they've been able to play more of a play action like thing, even involving more of their I feel like they just need to evolve more wide receivers. Like I said before in previous videos, I forget which one it was, but in previous videos I did think Arizona State had the potential to spread out their workload, not just give one receiver like 8 to 10 catches like every game and just let them be fine with it. They are 2-1. Their one loss was because they seem to have been very limited offensively, but at the same time their defense definitely gave up some plays. I do have to admit that. I think their front seven can be continuously insane. Right now they got 11 sacks combined. Their front seven, who I don't think anybody on the DB or safeties, I don't think any of them have sacks, but the front seven combined does have 11 sacks. So that's pretty darn impressive. You'll more than likely see at least, I think, the way it's going, at least 3 sacks to be able to actually dominate that Baylor team and that offensive line. But speaking of Baylor and sacks, Baylor's offensive line has also allowed 6 sacks against their quarterback. Now, Sawyer Robinson has done a lot better than Sam Leviett in the passing game. Thrown for 170 passing yards and 10 passing touchdowns. Has more of a widespread, so realistically, Baylor is looking like something that I just kind of wish Arizona State was more of. And Sawyer is also, in my opinion, the better passer, the way the looks of things. So I do think you're going to probably want to just say that both teams, it really just depends on what happens defensively. If Arizona makes more plays on defense or turnovers the ball a little bit more, or Baylor does that and is able to turn over the ball on downs, or is able to stop the running game for Arizona, and that's pretty much just cutting the head off of a snake at that point. Just the way it's been going, unless Sam Leviett and the Arizona State Sun Devils can show me something different, and that they can compete with their own passing game and give the ball not just to frickin' Jordan Tyson, then show me that. If you can't, then I wouldn't be surprised if Baylor comes out with the win. But we also want to look at Kenton Thompson. This is not the first time I've talked about him. I think I talked about him in week 2, right after we talked about that first week. I was talking about Kenton Thomas and how he basically is leading his team in being the number 1 tackler for Baylor. Guess what? The guy is now had 30 tackles, and he is still the leading tackler. And at the same time, the second most tackles for any player on that defense only has 16. So you can kind of just see that Kenton Thomas is that guy to just fucking blow a hole through anything, whether that's for tackles for loss, whether that's in the middle of the field, or he has a hold of you, he's bringing your butt down regardless. So Baylor's defense may be able to stop Arizona's run game, but I still think, as my dad was born and raised in Arizona, and he's an Arizona guy, just for that. And I've also loved watching Arizona State and Arizona during basketball season. Love that. So, in my opinion, I'm just going to have to go with the Arizona State Sun Devils and I see them winning probably by like 5 points. The most I'd probably see by a touchdown or by 10, but at least 3 to 5 points goes to Arizona. Anyway, we are getting to very close to 50 minutes there. So I'm just going to finish it off with BYU versus East Carolina. And obviously it is on ESPN2. Some of these games are on different channels. Some of these games are easier access than others. I can understand if you guys can't watch it. That's why I do say, even after you guys, even after it's done, but the highlights are out on YouTube, go watch them, because the moment you guys are like, oh shoot, like, I kind of see what Stove was talking about on some of these players, or I kind of see what he was like trying to say, but like he didn't give much more detail than that. Or you can tell me what I would have gotten wrong because of like certain things happening during the game. But anyway, I'm just going to flat out say East Carolina is going to get this win against BYU. BYU's number one quarterback has only gotten 272 passing yards with 3 passing touchdowns. I think BYU is one out of like 3 teams in the Big 12 right now that has only gone through 2 games. So I may be looking at it completely wrong. But whenever I see that the quarterback is averaging 135 pretty much, or 136 passing yards and a touchdown and a half per game, you really probably don't see BYU making any more big things than that. Other than the fact that BYU has 14 different ball carriers with 89 carries, 625 rushing yards, and 7 rushing touchdowns. That is insane. 14 different ball carriers. You might as well just freaking have the run game be your entire game plan at that point. Which it kind of does look like that. I mean, you only let your quarterback pass whenever he needs to pass. But other than that, let's just shift the ball over to a second or third string quarterback that hasn't played yet since like last year. But I do think it ends up being more of a closer game, more than just a close game. It will come down to a field goal. I think this game definitely comes down to a field goal. Will Furin, if I'm pronouncing his first name correctly, Will Furin looks very composed, very consistent. He has kicked from many different places and has able to just be able to stay focused and poised. I really like that in kickers, and I think he could be a guy that can be a very great kicker in the pros, in NFL, and be a very good game changer for any NFL team that ends up picking him up in later years. Is 10 for 10 extra points, 6 for 6 in field goals. I think there's only been one time where he's kicked above a 50-plus yarder, but he made it with even some room to grow. Even some room to spare. So he has incredible kicking power, and he's got some good accuracy. I haven't really seen him much in a windy situation, but other than that, I think he ends up coming with like at least 3 field goals during this game. Maybe more. I think at most you'll probably see 5 field goals from this man. Especially if they just can't really get into the end zone. I could definitely see Will Fernan getting at least 3 field goals, at most 4. At most 5 or 6 field goals. East Carolina, their quarterback, Hauser, with 973 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns. East Carolina has also gotten at least 9 different ball carriers with 115 carries, 406 rushing yards, and 9 rushing touchdowns. So they're actually way more they're less diverse on their different ball carriers, but at least they have a quarterback that has been at least putting up stats and putting up yards. A lot more confident, in my opinion, a lot more of a confident team with their quarterback being able to do whatever he really needs to do. I think he's even a more completion rating as well. But obviously BYU's quarterback has only thrown for so much compared to East Carolina. East Carolina also has a good tight end duo. I think you're gonna see one, if not both, of the tight ends. That both of them between themselves have 15 catches with over nearly 200 yards receiving and 2 receiving touchdowns. You're more than likely going to see more of that for them. And even Anthony Smith, looking for his first touchdown, it looks like. Hasn't gotten a single touchdown yet, but does have 23 catches, 241 receiving yards. I think he's got 9 more catches than the second most catches for a receiver that on that team right now. And I can definitely see that defense making BYU's team their life a living hell, pretty much. East Carolina, and it's at East Carolina. I don't know why it says that BYU is favorited 6.5. Maybe I'm nuts. Maybe I should listen to sports analysts, but I'm not. Okay, East Carolina wins 40-something to BYU's 21 or 24. I'm gonna give that straight up, especially if East Carolina's defense just comes in, gets at least 3 sacks, and even makes BYU's quarterback turn over the ball a couple of times with some interceptions, which Bear hasn't done that yet. I'm pretty sure he hasn't thrown a single interception. I think he's only gotten sacked once or twice. So BYU's good. They have solid blocking, but I just think East Carolina's team just has way more talent, has way more actual athletes. Not trying to throw shade at BYU. I just think East Carolina is the birthplace of underrated athletes that can't necessarily make their way to other teams like Indiana, like Ohio State, like Alabama, like Georgia, and all these other different higher D1 colleges. But East Carolina has always been that team to show so much great athleticism, especially with their receivers. And their receivers have a lot of different, almost all of their receivers have different stats towards them. So anyway, I see East Carolina with that win, and yeah, that is it. Hopefully I will, whenever I do a review on these games, on all of these games, I will also do a short review on the 7 games that I talked about, and I will see how correct I really was on all 7 of these games. And if I picked these, I've already picked out these 7 teams that win, and if I go 2 for 7 or 3 for 7, you guys can throw freaking tomatoes in my face. But if I go 6 for 7 or 7 for 7. I'm just saying, it may be something, maybe something to look at in later videos. But anyway, you guys have a very good day. Hopefully this video is out before all of the games even start, and you guys have a very good day. Like, comment, subscribe, support the channel however you see fit, but I appreciate it regardless of how you guys do it. Thank you very much for watching, and peace.